What is up, y'all? Diego Sarmiento here for the very first stream that I'm doing. Technically, the second stream, but the last one I recorded it wrong. So, welcome, y'all. First stream ever. Today, we're going to be going over some really interesting stuff. We're going to be going over Nicolas Maduro in New York, what's going on in Venezuela. We're going to be going over Zoran Mamdani starting his new mayoral administration. Very interesting stuff. It's a really crazy time in America with U.S. imperialism, with democratic socialism spurring up in the country. Then we're going to see if we could squeeze in a historical video that we could watch together at the end of the stream, learn a little bit more about U.S. imperialism, the history of Venezuela, and one of the most prominent revolutionaries in American history, Che Guevara, Ernesto Che Guevara. Why? Because it's very relevant to what's going on in Bolivia today. I mean, in Venezuela today. My bad, y'all. I'm Bolivian. And then what's going on with in terms of U.S. intervention in Latin America. So really exciting stuff. Let's get into this, y'all. And by the way, reminder to y'all, like, subscribe, follow, comment on this. To get more engagement, comment what you guys want to see, what more content you guys want to see. But okay, all right, let's get into this, y'all. So first off, Zoran Mamdani just got sworn in a few days ago as New York City's new mayor. He's one of the youngest mayors the city has ever seen, and he's a democratic socialist. And I think what's really interesting about him is he has a lot of pressure, on his shoulders on his administration right now. Why? Well, because it's really probably the most prominent, progressive leftist in such a high office in the entire country. So the entire country is going to be looking at the Mamdani administration to see if the left could actually govern, if the left could actually deliver. So there's this idea that the left, is kind of pie in the sky. They have all these great ideas, these utopian ideas, but they can never actually govern and tangibly get things done. So I think that's kind of the big pressure on the Mamdani administration right now. And I think he's going to step up to it. I think he's really focused and really, set on delivering on his affordability agenda. So with that, let's get into this first thing I want to show y'all. So here, this is, I think, literally day one of his administration. But look what he did. I think this might even be like right after his public inauguration. What he does is he goes to apartments, and he goes to kind of apartments that are dealing with some difficulties, rundown apartments where the landlord has been, neglecting, keeping the standards high. And here, let's watch. Ooh, let me plug really quickly my headphones in, y'all. My bad, y'all. But okay, let's watch it from the beginning. Hmm. Hmm. Move this over a little bit. So look, on day one, he's on the ground, bringing tangible improvements to people's lives, which is what he needs to do. He can't just be, talking, saying all the talking points and talking a big game without actually delivering on the agenda. So really great to see that. Really great to see Zoran out there on day one, actually, getting things done. So let's see. Over here, this is something else he did, I think, 2 days ago. And this is really funny because I think, this account that posted this, they're like a right wing account. And they posted this saying, almost like, dunking on him, saying, this guy's crazy. Look what he's trying to do. And here, look, just to read it to y'all, breaking New York Mayor Mamdani says he is working to ensure World Cup tickets are, quote, available to all. And they're framing this as this is like a terrible thing. And let's see what I think what they're saying. This is not satire, by the way. So let's see what Zoran has to say here. So look, this cracks me up that, these right-wing accounts are trying to paint this as like such a bad, crazy thing. Oh my goodness, he's trying to make the World Cup affordable. And I want to tell y'all just a quick story. I have a few friends who are pretty apolitical. They don't follow politics too much. They're really into sports, but they've seen and heard of Zoran Mamdani through honestly like his love of like soccer and basketball. And they see things like this and they've gotten invested in the New York City race. I even know someone who went to, I think Zoran hosted like like a soccer tournament for New York residents, and people went and they had fun. They built community. These are things that are super popular. So I don't know why these right wing outlets are trying to dunk on him for this. If anything, this is great politics, great optics, but also it's giving people like what something that will actually improve their lives again, giving them a space to be in community, to have fun, to play soccer, and to, in this case, and to, be able to watch the World Cup, which is, I love it. I love how he's trying to make the entire city more affordable. Of course, starting with the basic needs for the city, but then not stopping there. Really trying to even expand, the privileges of the city to make it affordable for everybody. So love to see this Zoran. Let me move this a little bit more over here. Let's see over here. This is another thing. So Zoran Mamdani says that he called Donald Trump to tell him that he opposed his actions in Venezuela. So this is really interesting because this is in contrast with other Democrats who are literally saying either the pure opposite or just saying nothing. Let's see over here if I have something more. Well, if I could look up. Well, just trust me on this, y'all. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, it took them, I think, a whole, other day to actually comment on what was going on in Venezuela. And their whole critique was, hey, you know, President Trump is, this action, he should have ran by Congress before he did this, which is almost implying that they would have agreed to it as long as, they had asked Congress beforehand if they're allowed to do this, which is just so, I mean, such in the Democrat style of, being, only caring about the procedure of it, not really caring about the substance or the morality of it. All they care about is, oh, did you follow the right procedure? They're not willing to be bold and take that stance of, no, this is wrong, not only procedurally, but also morally and also on principle. Because it's not right that we can go in and bully other Latin American countries and just say, hey, we don't like your president, we're going to kidnap him and charge him on American soil. That isn't right. And of course, I'm no big fan of Nicolas Maduro, but it's just a violation of the Venezuelan people's sovereignty in order to go in and bring up BS charges that he had guns in his country when our president is completely immune from our laws. But we could go into other countries and we could say, okay, you're not immune to our laws, but our president is. Like, that's such a double standard. So it's crazy to see that going on, but also it's great to see that Zoran is actually making use of his position as mayor and with his pretty close relationship with Trump to actually try to push Trump in the right direction. Do I think he made a dent in what Trump's behavior is going to be? Probably not. But look, at least he's trying. That shows that he really understands like the weight of the responsibility that he has in his office right now. So it's good to see that, and sad to see the other Democrats' reactions to this. Terrible. So see, here's something I really wanted to show you guys. So a lot of people are saying, look, the war in Venezuela is very, very different than what happened in Iraq. And I guess it's not a war in Venezuela yet, but the intervention in Venezuela is very, very different than what happened in Iraq. That's what people are saying. They're saying there's no similarities. That was bad. What happened in Iraq was bad, but this is different. This is really good. It's completely supported by all the Venezuelan people, and it got rid of a dictator, and is definitely not for other nefarious reasons, is what they're saying. So let's see. Let's watch this video and see what if this supports that or not. Mm. Literally almost word for word the same dynamic happening. So I just want you guys to be informed that the media is going to try to manufacture consent for these illegal military operations, illegal interventions in other countries. And it's going to try to persuade you that, of course, historically, US interventions have been terrible. Even the mainstream media, I think now will agree that the war in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, all these things, Latin America has been terrible historically. But what happens time and time again, the newest one is always the good one. The newest one is always the one that's okay. It's always the one that's justified. That, oh, we won't be there for a while. This will be swift. We'll just go and get rid of a dictator. The people will be happy, and then it'll be swift exit. That's what they literally exactly as you guys saw. That's exactly what what they said in Iraq. I think when when they got rid of Saddam Hussein, the people of Iraq were celebrating and stuff. And I think nowadays people, will agree that that was a mistake. I think that's the consensus of, every, solid person who has a solid working brain will agree about that. So just want to keep y'all informed that when you guys see the mainstream media pushing, a certain narrative, know that it's happened before. This isn't unprecedented, and to be, prepared for what's going to happen next, because most likely it's not going to be good based on history. So over here, I wanted to highlight two things that I think people aren't really focusing on, and it's actually the people who died in the attacks by the U.S. on Venezuela. Everybody's talking about the long-term effects. People are talking about the short-term effects of Maduro being locked up and finally removed. But nobody's talking about, okay, wait, the U.S. just literally dropped bombs randomly on Venezuela, on Caracas, and killed civilians. Like, it's not just only military people that they killed. And I think it's some reports are that it's upwards of 80 people killed. Um, I mean, no matter how bad, Maduro is, which of course I agree he's not a good leader. Uh, dropping bombs on innocent people, I think that's something to question, and I think there could have been another way to go about it. But I just want to highlight, this one, Trump and Rubio. This is reporting by Ryan Grimm. Trump and Rubio killed the father of these three children. First Lieutenant Junio Estevez. He was among the Cubans killed by Delta Force operation as they kidnapped Maduro. Then over here, a 45-year-old single mother was killed by Donald Trump's strikes in Venezuela while she was trying to get her daughter to safety. Um, yeah, look at this. I guess this is her and her daughter. So again, I want to remind y'all that innocent people died from this attack, and not just one, not just two. Upwards of 80 people had, died from this, and I think people are ignoring that fact, and people are, saying, I think I saw someone, at a protest saying, a few people have to die, but it'll be worth it. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I, think the best way to go about it is figure out a democratic way or some other way, some strategic way to get rid of, Maduro. And that's up to the Venezuelan people. I don't think it's up to us to be dropping bombs on a country just because we don't like the leader. And if you still think that, they did this because they just don't like Maduro or they want to promote democracy and human rights and economic well-being to the people of Venezuela, then you're just completely wrong. Because part of the reason, I'm not going to say all the reason, but part of the reason why there is so much poverty and economic struggle in Venezuela is because of US sanctions, which are collective punishment on the Venezuelan people for something that's not their fault. And also, that's just ignoring the historical fact, and not even the historical fact. What the administration is saying, that they're doing this for oil. They're also probably doing it for a political win. And then also, this is like Marco Rubio's like dream that he's been having ever since he was a kid. I think it's literally like I think he wrote in his book that it was his dad's dying wish for Marco Rubio to liberate Latin America from socialism. So crazy stuff, and it's leading to people's lives being lost. And also something else I want to bring up is a lot of people are saying that you know what's going on in Venezuela is it's not a it wouldn't be a good situation, but what's going on in Venezuela is okay because the people of Venezuela want it. They're saying you shouldn't talk about, what's going you shouldn't be critical of US intervention of dropping bombs on another country. Why? Because the people of Venezuela want it. Because I have a friend who maybe isn't living in Venezuela, maybe they're living in Miami, but they're from Venezuela and they think this is a good thing. They think this is a beautiful thing, what happened. And to that, I think they showed videos of like protests happening, which were actually in Miami and not in Venezuela. I think there were some that were even like AI videos that, right wingers were posting and saying, look, the Venezuelan people want bombs to be dropped on them. That's what they're saying. So my response to that is if you're going to, use that argument of listening to the Venezuelan people, then I would say don't pick and choose, don't cherry pick which Venezuelan people you're going to listen to. And here, this is something I want to show y'all over here. So this is literally from Caracas. This is what people are saying against the U.S. war on Venezuela and the abduction of the president. Let's see. Mm, mm. Look, so what I say to right wingers saying listen to the Venezuelan people, I say listen to all of the don't cherry pick who you're going to listen to. Don't cherry pick and only listen to Venezuelans who are living in America or Venezuelans who are living in Miami. Listen to all of the Venezuelan people. Listen to these people protesting right now from Caracas. Listen to these people, hundreds on the streets. This was on January 4th, like protesting with signs of Nicolas Maduro. This comment here, Max Blumenthal, image is forbidden in the U.S. corporate media. The U.S. corporate media will only cover, pro, U.S. intervention, pro imperialism, protesting, not, pro sovereignty and pro, pro sovereignty protests. There's other ones over here. Look at this. Like this is even members of the Venezuelan opposition are now demanding Maduro's release. So those of y'all saying, listen to both sides. Look, not only are, of course, the Maduro supporters upset, but even the opposition party to, Nicolas Maduro is protesting and are demanding Maduro's release. So both sides are saying it. So if you're gonna cherry pick and listen to one of your Venezuelan friends who lives in Miami, listen to the people in Venezuela, in Caracas, in both sides, not just, Maduro supporters, but also opposition the Venezuelan opposition who are also demanding Maduro's release. Like Glenn Greenwald over here says. Now that the mega viral videos spread by Trump influencers were exposed as frauds, we see the real videos of Venezuelans in that country demanding their sovereignty. Because, yeah, I don't think it takes, much thought to think, okay, there's probably a good amount of Venezuelans who don't want bombs dropped on them, killing innocent people and kidnapping their president just for the US to come in, take all their oil, and literally run their country without any, popular mandate. I think that's pretty clear. And over here, just to, drive the point home even more, a reminder that the vast majority of Venezuelans reject Trump and America's hand-picked dictator in waiting. So polls, 91% of Venezuelans hold unfavorable views of opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who she's the lady who won the Nobel Peace Prize, who was kind of propped up by, US interests, is also really pro-Israel for some reason, some interesting reason. But look, the Venezuelan people have spoken. Washington is not listening. So this, was posted, a month ago before, the attacks on Venezuela. But again, goes to show that all these people saying, listen to, Venezuelan people, they're so happy. Well, look here. It says 91% of people living in Venezuela hold unfavorable views of opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, and they probably don't want the U.S. coming in, bombing their country just to, put Maria Corina Machado in office. And over here, this is almost like kind of, a little comical side point, but it almost shows how crazy Trump's ego is and how much world decisions and the futures and potential of countries is determined by this one guy's really fragile ego. So let's read this. White House officials have said that the reason Trump did not back Maria Machado for president of Venezuela is that she accepted the coveted Nobel Prize, an award Trump felt that he was entitled to. If she had turned it down and said, I can't accept it because it's Trump's, she'd be the president of Venezuela today. So this is who we're dealing with, y'all. We're dealing with someone who literally makes decisions on who's going to be the president of millions of people based on if they were nice to him or not. Not based on, are they supported by the people? Not based on, is this in the best interests of the country? Is this respecting their sovereignty? He makes a decision based off of, hey, did this lady slight me on winning a prize that I don't even know probably some people care about. I definitely don't care about who wins the Nobel Prize after they gave it to Barack Obama, like 1 month into his administration when he was, dropping, doing drones, completely increased drone strikes in the Middle East. So I don't really believe in the Nobel Prize. But look, even back then, unbelievable stuff. I mean, look at all turns on his ego. It's crazy. Oh, and this is a crazy story, y'all. So a lot of people who are against or who are pro-U.S. intervention, U.S. imperialism in Venezuela are saying, hey, Maduro is a dictator and we, on our U.S. moral high ground, should be the world police. We are the moral democracy that is, not repressive. Maduro's regime is repressive and, silences political dissidents and disappears people who disagree with him. That's happening in Venezuela. But no, we're better than that. And that's why we could go in and bomb their country, take their oil and run their government. That's the argument. To that, I want to say, just look at this video over here. It's unbelievable. Obstructing a roadway when she's giving an interview. So I want to ask y'all, if she was pro U.S. imperialism in Venezuela, would that have happened? Would that have happened? I think most of y'all would say that wouldn't have happened if she was pro US imperialism. So tell me, when we say that we have this moral high ground as the US, that we don't disappear people, that we don't, silence political dissent and silence political opposition, and that's why we have the right to go in and bomb another country, kill innocent people, kidnap their president, go in and take their oil and then run their government because we're the moral, we have the moral high ground over here. And that's why, someone, responds, damn, free country, huh? So I just want to say, understand the context of where we're living in. Today, sadly, in the city that I'm from, multiple people were violently kidnapped by ICE. There's really ugly videos on it. It's really sad to see because, at the same time that we're, intervening in other countries on the pretense that we are going to expand human rights and democracy and that, the Maduro regime was such a repressive and, dictatorial and, silencing political dissent type government. And we're better than that. That's the argument. And, on the same day that they're making that argument, they're violently kidnapping, people in my city. It's really hard to see, really tough to see, really sad to see. And it completely, destroys that argument that we have the moral high ground here in the US because of that. So just crazy stuff. On a lighter note, I want to share with y'all this crazy fact that Tekashi 69 has turned himself in to begin his 3-month jail sentence. Okay, interesting. But this is the crazy part. He will be held in the same detention center as Nicolas Maduro and Luigi Mangione. I'm going to say that one more time. Tekashi 69, the rapper, will be held in the same detention center as Nicolas Maduro and Luigi Mangione. I heard rumors that Diddy is there too. I don't know if that's true. I feel like they would have put it if that's true. But either way, man, the basketball games here are going to be crazy. The pickup games are going to be crazy. Um, the football games are going to be crazy. The conversations are going to be crazy. I don't know how, like, what this detention center looks like, how much like social time they get if they're going to interact with each other. I've only seen like a few centers, institutions, and in those, I know you play sports together, you talk together, you build relationships. I don't know how this one will be with like Luigi Mangione, like someone who allegedly killed someone. But man, what I mean, I can't wait for 6ix9ine to to get out. Hopefully, maybe Luigi Mangione gets out. It'll be interesting to see what those conversations were like because I know 6ix9ine. The first thing he's gonna do when he gets out, he's gonna get on a podcast, get on Vlad TV, and he's gonna say all the stories about him bunking with Mangino. He's probably gonna lie a little bit, but probably he's gonna tell the crazy stories of playing basketball with Maduro. Maduro is, I think, really tall. So that'll be a crazy 3-on-3 team right there. This squad right here, 3-on-3 squad, is like, oh man, that is this is a lot of this is good Hispanic representation. Also, he's Mexican, South American. I don't think Mangione. I think he's like Italian, but wild times, y'all. And I think to keep it on a little not too much of a little bit more of a lighter note, West Side Gun shares a concept album cover inspired by Maduro's recent arrest. You can see here it's Nicolas Maduro in the Nike Tech. I had a friend tell me that they should have at least put him in a quarter zip. Um, Hopefully y'all found that funny. But look at him, Maduro in his Nike Tech with the iced out chain, West Side Gun. This is what I'm saying, y'all. This is when the US does something like this, like it not only creates a meme, but I feel like it actually creates more support for Maduro. Because just like, when Trump got, indicted and they took the mugshot of him, they put it on a t-shirt. That honestly helped his reelection. That gained his popularity, was that, that mugshot right there. I mean, you're making Maduro out to look like a martyr. I think he's probably going to get more popular from this. I'm really interested to see if, the trial goes through, like what he's going to say. He's a pretty interesting guy. Really, people say he's like a charismatic talker. He's not standing down. I think he is saying, I'm not guilty. I'm the president of Venezuela. I'm a prisoner of war. Crazy stuff. So this is the big 2026. We don't have Charlie Kirk memes anymore. We have Nicolas Maduro memes. What timeline are we living in? But okay. All right, one more thing, y'all. I want to share with y'all again the weakness of the Democratic Party. Okay, this, U.S. intervention is, U.S. imperialism is starting up again, and it never really stopped, but it's reaching crazy levels that we maybe haven't seen in a long time. Of course, the opposition party is going to be standing up, right? They're going to be bold against, U.S. imperialism and bombing innocent civilians and kidnapping their president, completely violating international law and setting a really scary precedent for the world. The Democrats are going to stand up, right? They're going to be bold, right? They're going to say this is international gangsterism, right? Well, maybe not the establishment of the party. So I don't know if you guys know Olivia Giuliana. I think she's on the payroll of the Democratic Party. But I think as soon as this happened, like literally the day, the intervention happened, she tweets out, "I'm not mad about Maduro being arrested. I'm mad it didn't happen sooner." I'm not mad about Maduro being arrested. I'm mad it didn't happen sooner. Now, look, if he was arrested by his own country and it was, a fair process like that, because hopefully he should be subject to his own laws. I know in America, our president is not subject to, has immunity, but hopefully, in Venezuela, they don't have that. If he got arrested there, look, that's fair game. But another country coming in and doing it the way, we did it, bombing innocent civilians, killing innocent civilians, and all the, one of the biggest spokespersons of the Democratic Party, a paid spokesperson for the Democratic Party, has to say is, this should have happened sooner. The U.S. should have done this sooner. That's what you have to say. That's what the party has to say. That's why I say, yeah, Dems are cooked. Holy S word. Unbelievable, y'all. Unbelievable. This is our opposition party. And again, it wasn't much better with the actual elected officials. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries were, out there saying, this intervention was okay. You just had to ask me first. You had to ask us for permission, and that is what is wrong about all this. Not the fact that you killed innocent civilians, not the fact that you kidnapped, illegally kidnapped another president, another country's president, and not that you're going to take all their oil and run their country. No, that's not what's wrong. It's that you should have asked us for permission first. That is the Democratic Party establishment talking point right now. You should have asked us first. Not all of them, not all the Democrats, but the establishment point of view is that. We have brave people like Ro Khanna, other people running for office, like I said, Zoran Mamdani, who are standing up and actually calling it out for what it is and saying this is wrong. But of course, that is not the establishment of the party. So, y'all, we need that Democratic Tea Party now. Hopefully 2026, we get all these establishment cronies out of here, these establishment, ghouls who are just slaves to their corporate donors. We got to get those guys out of here. Hopefully 26, 28, we see what happens. But that's kind of the main news of the day on Twitter that I wanted to go over with y'all. I did want to show y'all a quick video, though. It is Vox Venezuela. Let's see this. So this is 6 years ago, talking about what happened in Venezuela. So it's not going to be completely up to date, but let's watch. Hmm. And that's what nowadays they're calling it, the Don Road Doctrine, because Donald Trump's trying to revive that. That's all in his alley. He loves that stuff. He loves this, U.S. military strength and being, having dominance over the region and the world. So this is, very fitting for Donald Trump. Look, he said something really interesting that the United States is an empire. And I think a lot of people know this to be true, but they don't, tangibly frame the US that way. They frame the US as, the greatest nation on earth, not really framing it in almost that historical broad sense of no, this is the American empire. And those of us who are American, we're living like right in the heart of the American empire. And that's how we need to frame our interactions with other countries. And that's how other countries view us. My family's from Latin America. My mom's from Mexico. My mom born in Mexico. My dad born in Bolivia. And trust me, we'll get into Bolivia soon. But they have a very, very deep history with U.S. intervention in Bolivia. In their politics and their government, and they view the U.S. as an America, and throughout history they viewed it as not a good actor, as a bad actor. The government right now in Bolivia is actually supported by the U.S. The party switched, but we'll get into that. Just a few years ago, there was something that is very, very similar to what happened. What's going on in Venezuela right now happened in Bolivia a few years ago. So I want to share that with y'all. But yeah, we need to frame this, the U.S. as an empire, and that's not to say that the U.S. is bad or terrible. Even though I think the U.S. has done some terrible things, just because it's an empire doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight to make this country even better. And look, this country's done a lot for me. It's done a lot for my family, done a lot for a lot of families. I even after all this, call me crazy, but I'd still rather live in America than any other country. So all of this is not coming out of love for the idea of for America as a country, because countries, nations are just ideas. They're like corporations. They're made up, but it's coming out of love for like the people of America and the people of the world. And I think that's what I really like this term humanism, rather than nationalism or something. Of really, instead of just being I'm pro America, and I don't care at all what happens to other countries, because that's anti that goes against our nature of being human. At the end of the day, what brings us together is that we all are humans. So this idea of humanism, of supporting the well-being of everybody just because they are human and that they are alive, that's kind of an ideology that I kind of subscribe to, rather than nationalism, or even things like socialism or communism or capitalism. It's like, no, we're humanists. We care about humans and human flourishing and human life. And I think everybody, to a sense, if you're human, unless you're like a sociopath, everybody who's a human, you can't deny your innate biological wiring to care about your neighbor. And I think these are some of the most historic moral codes, is caring about your neighbor, loving your neighbor. Um, so I think this idea of humanism is something that I really like the framing of. Mm, mm. If I make this full screen, what does this look like? Ooh, my bad, y'all. Oh, whoops, my bad, y'all. My bad, y'all. My bad, my bad, my bad. It's the oil, y'all. It's the oil. Mm. Yeah, and at this time, around the same time, Bolivia. I know a lot more about Bolivia than other countries, but a big kind of part of this group was Evo Morales with the Movimiento al Socialismo, the movement towards socialism in Bolivia. So we'll get into that in a second. There he is. Yeah. Mm. That's crazy. There was a coup back then, and then I think the U.S. supported it too. So history repeats itself, y'all. Man, they just straight up lied. That's crazy. Mm. Yeah, what I want to say is I hope for the best for the Venezuelan people. Like especially with the government, I know a lot of, a lot of people can't acknowledge two things at once, that what is going on right now and with the US intervention is bad, but also that the government before was definitely not even close to perfect and had a lot of flaws. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs exactly about what's going on. All I just know it's, it's repressive. It's there's a ton of economic strife. Politically, if you show dissent, that bad things will happen to you. So, I mean, of course, I want to make clear that I do not endorse their government. Hmm. Yeah, corruption. Yes. Yes, that is the point. That is a statement right there. 6 years ago, speaking facts, that's rings just as true, if not more true today. Right there, that statement back there. I'm gonna go back. Mm. Great video. Great video. The last thing I want to share with y'all is Bolivia coup 2019. Let's see. Let's see if there's a better video. Oh man. Oh my goodness. One sheesh. That's more often than every year. That's crazy. That's my country, y'all. That's my not my country. That's my family's country, y'all. Oh man. No. Hmm. Oh man, economist Thomas Sowell. I'm not a fan of this guy. Let's see. Okay. All right. Well, that was a good video. Didn't really answer exactly what I wanted to go over, but I want to make this final comparison, y'all. The final comparison it's with Bolivia and with Venezuela. So, what happened in Bolivia in 2019? Well, what happened was the president at the time, his name was Evo Morales. He was the leader of his socialist party. And just to give some context, Bolivia before Morales was the poorest country in Latin America. It had always been ruled by kind of the kind of wider, more European wealthy minority, the wealthy elite. It never had any indigenous president in their history, but it's a majority indigenous country. It's the most indigenous country in the entirety of Latin America, and they never had an indigenous president, let alone like a really strong, bold socialist president. In about the early 2000s, Evo Morales comes into power, and he nationalizes a lot of their industries. He redistributes wealth, does cash transfer programs, and I think he cuts extreme poverty. I think more than cuts it in half. Let's see, Evo Morales, extreme poverty. Let's see this, y'all. So look, this is extreme poverty from 64% down to 36%. And over here from the overall, well, let's see, national, 38% to 17%. So really slashed extreme poverty by a ton. This is our per capita annual growth. In Bolivia, those socialist policies were working. Evo Morales' policies were working. He was very popular. What he did do wrong, though, but legally it was fine. But I think, in my opinion, morally wrong. He should have stepped aside. He ran for a fourth term, where instead he should have done something like what AMLO did in Mexico, which is handed off to someone, a successor, to continue the movement. But he fell into the trap of wanting more power, and he tried running again for a fourth term. But what happened is he actually won the fourth term by more than 10 points. But what happened was, in this election, when he's running for his fourth term in 2019, the US comes in through the Organization of American States, the OAS, which I think, someone who had big sway in that was Marco Rubio. They come in and say, hey, there's irregularities in the voting system, and we suspect there's a chance that there was voter fraud. After this, all hell breaks loose. The military tells Morales to step down. He has to go hide in Mexico. And Bolivia now has a new right wing senator who becomes the president, who happens to be incredibly in support of the US and tries to bring US businesses to Bolivia. And one thing that is crazy that actually happens is, so look, in Venezuela, what's the situation? Well, the US is going in, getting rid of a socialist government. Why? In order to take their natural resources, to take their oil. They did a coup in Venezuela, basically, to get their oil. What happened in Bolivia? Well, Bolivia in 2019, the US government, through not like a military attack, but through more of a political tactic of saying that there was voter fraud, comes in, gets rid of Morales, installs one of their, a right wing senator who's friendly to them. And look what Elon Musk tweets after this happened. Look at this, y'all. So someone says, you know what wasn't in the best interest of people? The US government organizing a coup against Evo Morales in Bolivia so you could obtain the lithium there. Elon Musk responds, we will coup whoever we want. Deal with it. Or say that one more time. We will coup whoever we want. Deal with it. This was in 2020. So look, they're not hiding it. They've been doing this for decades now. And this just happened a few years ago in Bolivia. Very similar outcome, very similar circumstance. The US coming in and saying, no, we determine who is going to lead a country in Latin America. Definitely not going to be a socialist government, and definitely not going to be in a country where we could take their natural resources. In Venezuela, their oil; in Bolivia, their lithium, because I think Bolivia has one of the highest lithium reserves in the entire world. Again, Venezuela, one of the highest oil reserves, if I think the most oil reserves in the entire world. Same thing happens over and over again, y'all. We need to stay informed. We need to be in opposition of U.S. imperialism in principle, because we believe in sovereignty. And again, we believe that, of course, there needs to be change in Venezuela and improvement to the Maduro regime, but that should be led by the Venezuelan people, not the U.S. coming in and deciding that for the Venezuelan people through bombing innocent civilians. Just like I wouldn't want that to happen to my family in Bolivia, I don't want that to happen to the people of Venezuela. So with that, y'all, this is the end of the stream. Hopefully y'all found it educational, important.